Hello and welcome to this video on brewing with alternative grains. By alternative grains you don't mean anything especially weird. Well, you'd consider things like quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat and so on extremely weird, but they're not quite so bad. Instead, we are, for the most part, talking about relatively more standard grains that are not barley, specifically malted barley. Brewing with alternative grains refers to the use of fermentable ingredients beyond traditional barley malt in beer production. While barley has long dominated Western brewing due to its high enzyme content, balanced flavour and ease of mashing, alternative grains do offer opportunities for innovation, sustainability and inclusivity, all of which is kind of bullshit. All we really want is nice flavours. And frankly, if the grains don't provide those flavours, there's not much point in using them. In this case, those grains can include ancient cereals, pseudo-cereals and adjuncts like millet, sorghum, quinoa, buckwheat, rice, corn or maize as you wish to call it that, oats, rye, spelt, fonio, teff, emmer, einkorn, and even non-grain sources like casava or bananas in some traditional contexts. Although we have to admit the idea of putting a banana in a beer is kind of weird, but that's a purely subjective thing. These alternative grains are often employed to create gluten-free beers, enhance unique flavours, reduce environmental impact, such as lowering water usage, or incorporating local or heirloom varieties for terroir-driven profiles, which is just a fancy way of saying locally made. Alternative grains have a relatively deep historical root. In most places, they are the default foodstuff. In Africa, sorghum and millet form the base of most opaque beers, like unkombothi or pito, using techniques like decoction mashing. In Asia and Latin America, rice and corn have been adjuncts in lagers and chicha, respectively. And modern craft brewing has revived interest in these for styles like gluten-free IPAs, rustic saisons, or experimental hybrids. The Beer Judge Certification Program even recognizes alternative grain beer as a category, where non-standard grains like rye, oats or sorghum add a distinct character to a base style. There are good reasons for using alternative grains other than what we've mentioned. Brewers will turn to alternative grains for, well, simple reasons like gluten-free options. Grains like millet, buckwheat, sorghum, quinoa, rice and corn are naturally gluten-free. This enables beer for those with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. Traditional barley, wheat and rye contain gluten, so alternatives avoided entirely, unlike enzyme-treated gluten-reduced beers. Then we have the impact of flavour. First of all, flavour innovation is kind of a thing. You want to find novel ways of creating tastiness in your beer, but not so novel as to be completely insane. Many of these alternative grains introduce diverse profiles, whether it's nutty, earthy, sweet or fruity. It allows brewers to differentiate their product. For example, fonio adds tropical fruit and cinnamon notes, while buckwheat brings hay-like earthiness. It also provides a certain amount of sustainability and locality. Many alternatives require much less water and pesticides than barley do, at least where they're being brewed. Heirloom varieties like Carolina Gold Rice or Bloody Butcher corn support local farmers and, to a certain extent, biodiversity. Then we have health and nutrition. Grains like quinoa are protein-rich, and they certainly have a higher percentage of vitamins and minerals. This can potentially, and there's some pretty big caveats to that claim, boost beer's nutritional value. They can also lower the caloric content or add fibre. Then we have economic and cultural factors. In regions where barley is scarce or very expensive, locals can and will brew with things like sorghum or millet, and have done so for centuries. Craft brewers are now taking that information and going, why don't we experiment with it to try and either honour these traditions or simply address issues around supply chains? That is, for the most part, depending on where you are in the world, barley may only come from a limited number of places and, well, some of those places are currently under blockade, in one form or another. However, not all uses are purely alternative, and grains like oat or rye are common adjuncts in barley-based beers for body or spice. The alternative grains will vary in starch content, enzyme levels, and processing needs, and it's kind of important to be aware of this. It's not like you can just substitute one for the other. And so we have a fairly comprehensive table you can see here, and we'll just touch on some of the information as you can read it for yourself if you need to. First of all, you have millet. Millet will add a mild nutty and sweet flavour, and it's used as a base for most gluten-free beer. You can mash it up to 100%, very similar to barley, so it's a good alternative in that respect. The sorghum adds a cashew-like flavour, but it's not necessarily great because it struggles somewhat in terms of converting it from being a starch into a sugar that could be fermented. Somewhere around 60% and 40% for unmalted options. So This isn't great if you want to get maximum in terms of the alcohol out of it, or at least be able to use maximum sugars. That then has effects on things like body and mouthfeel. Quinoa is another option, and this of course has, well, some benefits, particularly when it comes to head retention, but in terms of its actual sugar content, it's not so usable. Then you have buckwheat and rice. Well, rice is pretty well known. For example, sake, or another rice wine variants. Clearly it's an option. Buckwheat, however, adds body and foam, which is great, and typically provides at least some alternative options when it comes to, well, let's say, barley overall. Corn is another fairly common option, and, well, it's fairly simple to understand why corn works. Corn is essentially mostly sugar, and just not sugar that can be used right away. This allows you to take it and, obviously through either malting, boiling, mashing, or any other processes, and convert it into a gluten-free option. It also reduces the amount of protein, which helps considerably when we're talking about clarity. Oats are another common option and goes back quite a ways, but it also significantly contributes to, say, stouts and IPAs when we talk about mouthfeel. Rye is another very old option and commonly found, and adds certainly a more peppery or more spiced flavour. It's somewhat, let's say, more useful in terms of lautering alone, but you do need to know what you're doing with it. Getting it wrong can be very bad. All of these grains can be malted as well. That's soaked, germinated, and kilned. You can also use enzyme activation or use raw with exogenous enzymes. To be clear about it, all of the alternatives are alternatives to some extent because they're not necessarily the most practical. They work, they're functional, but they do have some issues, let's say, either having to do with regional issues, so just simply be able to grow them in other places, the fact they require some more work, or they do produce certain results that are more, how do we put this? The results are more acquired as far as taste goes. The brewing process does also require some adaptations. The core brewing steps, mashing, lautering, boiling, fermentation, all remain similar, but alternatives do demand certain alterations and tweaks to what you're going to do. For example, with grain preparation, you need to rinse it to get rid of particularly bitter compounds like saponins and quinoa, to remove oily germs from maize and use a pre-hulled or par-cooked forms such as fonio. And then mashing has a key challenge, gelatinization. Heating to unlock the starches. The standard barley will mash at about 66 degrees Celsius, roughly 150 freedom units. But things like, say, sorghum and millet need 71 to 82 degrees Celsius, and this is somewhere in the ballpark of 170 freedom units. Then we have the cereal mash. For example, you can cook the adjuncts separately, using a ratio of about 3 parts water to 1 part grain. Boil it at the right temperature for 30 to 60 minutes, and then add it to the main mash. Decoction or decantation is boiling portions for gelatinization, which is particularly common with African-style beers. And if you really are struggling to make all of this work, additional enzymes. Literally, add alpha amylase, and use that for liquefaction, and then beta amylase for sugars. You want somewhere in the ballpark of 40 plus in terms of Lintner diastatic power. And then you have the mashing step. Start low, about 54 degrees Celsius or 130 freedom units for a protein rest, and then ramp it up for saccharification. And if you really want to get creative, go with koji. Use koji as the fermentation starter, inoculate it with this mold for starch conversion. It will, however, notably alter the flavours. Going on now to lautering and filtration, you can add rice hulls for particularly sticky mashes. Rye notes are notorious for this. Small grains like fonio may need bags to be used simply because they're messy otherwise and create a haze issue. Boiling and fermentation is going to require neutral hops and yeast. That's going to help highlight some of these more unusual grain flavours, and particularly noteworthy is you should ferment cooler if you can. The simple reality is that this is already somewhat of a, not necessarily mixed bag, but we should say perhaps a messy fermentation, and so fermenting at a cooler temperature gives you a cleaner profile. It gives the things that you want to taste out of these alternative grains the opportunity to shine without having to worry too much about things conflicting and interfering. Then we have gluten-free specifics. You can use dedicated equipment to avoid cross-contamination, but to be blunt, if you're brewing gluten-free beer, this should be a default. If you're still not sure, you can always use enzymes like ultra-firm for full conversion. If you're just starting out with these alternative grains, consider starting with a smash, a single malt adjunct hop. Essentially, make it as simple as possible. These are recipes that generally only use a single malted grain and a single hop variety. The recipes generally rely on, say, 80 to 90% pale malt plus 10 to 20% adjunct, mashed at about 150 degrees in freedom units, and somewhere in the ballpark of about 60 odd degrees in Celsius, if we're using civilized numbers. As we mentioned, there are some notable challenges, and obviously these will require solutions, when we're talking about alternative grains, and hydrolyzation is going to be your big concern here. The simple reality is that the temperatures needed are a problem, and the solution for the most part is going to be pre-cooking or using enzymes to bypass the requirement. Further to that, you are going to have low enzyme activity across most of these alternative grains. For example, a sorghum just outright lacks beta-amylases, at least in useful quantities for what we're talking about. This will inherently lead to poor conversion and low alcohol production, along with various alterations in how much of the starch you've released gets converted into something else, meaning you really only end up with a very starchy beer. Not so great for beer, and perfectly fine for making bread. The solution for that is easy enough. Blend it with high enzyme malts or add commercial enzymes. You want a decent ratio, and optimal ratios are typically in this ballpark, of about 60% malted sorghum to improve your yield. Then we have viscosity and stuck mashes. High beta-glucans in things like oats and rye create this problem. The solution is, well, beta-glucanase enzymes or rice hulls. Both of these work, and they're fairly straightforward. Then you have flavour and stability issues. Astringency, a poor foam due to low proteins, and similar. The solution is to adjust your percentages, and you're probably going to be doing a lot of adjusting. The simple reality is that with these alternative grains, it's not as predictable. But to be clear about it, we're talking in a broad sense. If, say, you are told to use X amount of barley in a standard recipe, you can't just replace that percentage of barley with these alternatives. You'll need to consider mixing and mashing, pun intended, of the different grains to get just the right percentages of different things, and that's more of a challenge for you. For example, you can add buckwheat and quinoa for head retention, and some sensory tweaking like hopping. Then you have, a sourcing and ethics. Now, most likely you aren't too fussed about this, but if that is a thing, rare grains may be expensive and certainly have impacts on food security. You're going to have to find your own ethical supplier, unfortunately, or grow your own local heirloom varieties. Either option works, but yeah, this is one where you're going to have to deal with that yourself, because we can't tell you what's ethical. There's also some research showing that sorghum beers can match barley in acceptability in terms of people wanting to drink it, but they will differ in foam and somewhat in complexity. This brings us to some example recipes for you, and we say example only because, to be frank, we're not that interested in making them ourselves, other than a rather morbid curiosity about how we go about this. We already find playing with barley to be quite satisfactory, but this is certainly a very interesting alternative approach to the problem. To take a gluten-free IPA as the first example, you have your base with malted millet, about 70% millet. Then you add about 20% buckwheat and quinoa at about 10%. These are all your starch sources to start with. Then hop heavily for balance. Then you have a gold pale ale at 80% IPA malt, about 20% fonio. Then whirlpool hops for tropical synergy, giving you somewhere in the ballpark of about 5.5% alcohol by volume. American lager from corn or rice. Start with 70% pale malt. Then add 30% cereal mashed corn, or, as mentioned, rice as the alternative. This should make about a 5% alcohol by volume beer, with a crisp and light result. If that's not to your taste and you want to go even further afield, although we would suggest starting with one or the other of these just to put your toes in the water, so to say, a sorghum lager. You want 60% malted sorghum, and then 40% unmalted sorghum with alpha amylase. This will produce a slightly lower alcohol beer at about 4%, with mild bitterness. Then we have some of the commercial varieties that are out there, like Ghost Fish, which is millet-based, a Groundbreaker, which is a chestnut and millet-based option, or the African-inspired Shakparo, which is sorghum-based. There are some trends though, and that's that brewing with alternative grains is increasing in popularity, partly due to the gluten-free demand. The market is growing at about 10% annually, and there are also strong pushes towards sustainability issues. There's also some greater innovations that have allowed for this to happen. For example, enzyme technology for efficiency, and certainly hybrid styles for blending tradition and, well, these new possible grains. But there are definitively challenges present. The simple reality is that scaling this isn't so easy. Whether we're talking about sourcing a significantly greater amount of this grain from places, the cost of enzymes, and everything else, it is somewhat more difficult to achieve large-scale production. We're talking about large breweries, so you will mostly be finding this as either a craft or microbrewery product. But there are certainly benefits to going down this pathway, unique flavours and, to an extent, inclusivity, although, frankly, when talking about beer is generally inclusive, we just want to make it more flavourful. And you could certainly argue that the diversity of flavour, and certainly it's a greater diversity with all these alternative grains, does introduce more inclusivity and flavour, outweighing any negatives. This does bring us to some of the future trends though, mostly here down to heirloom malts, and to a lesser extent climate-resilient grains and non-alcoholic variants. But if you're going to get into this, the simple reality is that experimentation is going to be key, and you're going to want to start small, because the raw grains, the way they taste, can either be very similar or very different to the final product, depending on exactly what you do along the way. Meaning you're going to have to be reiterating a lot in order to get just what you want in a final balanced beer. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And please do post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.